بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. How did tafsir start? Did it start with writing it, recording it? People had pen and paper. Every time the Prophet would say something, they would, gather it in a book and, typesetting. And no, it didn't. For almost 100 years, even more than 100 years, there was no recording and no writing and no tadween. This is called tadween. Tadween. Tadween means when you write something, when you document something. There wasn't any tadween of the tafsir. So how did people learn the tafsir if they were not writing it? Huh? Hajj Hamid, how did they learn it?
Memorize.
They would pass it verbally from one generation into another. And that happened during the time of the Prophet, after the time of the Prophet, the Sahaba time, and after the Sahaba, what do we call them? Tabi'een. And then the Tabi'een, the third generation came to write. Because people started to die.
So there is no written tafsir, let's say from Ibn Abbas or Ibn Masud?
No. He did not write. We will come to this. His students, they started writing. But in the middle of the 2nd century, not during his time, because Ibn Abbas died 68 Hijri. That happened after 100 and something Hijri, where they started to write. Why? Why people didn't write?
That's a good question, because they were doing the Quran. Weren't they writing down the Quran?
No.
They weren't writing.
The Quran is, something else. Even the Quran, Imam Ali started it after the time of the Prophet. Why? Because there were so memorizers. Why should I write if I memorize? Why should he write if he memorizes? But after the departure of the Prophet, Imam Ali said, I would never leave my house before I collect the whole Quran. Because those people are going to die. Memorizers are going to lose the Quran. So he stayed at home. He finished the collection of the Quran, Jam'ul Quran, collection, and then...
And the golden commentaries, right? Or no?
Golden? No.
He didn't write the...
No. Not golden. No. He would, at that time, they would write it on leaves, on leathers. So he would collect it either from the chests of the people. He is memorizer himself.
Right.
And then he would collect it from here and there and he put it together.
Sayyid, I'm sorry, did he write the explanations, commentaries of the Quran, or no?
No. Imam Ali would pass it to students. He would not write the commentary. Yeah. They didn't write because it was well known, like today, for instance. Something happens. An example of the revolution in Iran. Maybe people today, they don't write because it's a fresh. Everybody knows about it. You write it for whom? But in 20 years from now, this generation is going to die. None of them survive. So you have to write. You have to write for the next generations. And this is exactly what happened with the tafsir. Because people knew the tafsir. They memorized it. They passed it. But they did not find it necessary to put it in one book. To do tadween. And do systematic writing and gathering of the writings.
So it wasn't like the hadith prohibition?
No. It wasn't. Hadith was prohibited because for political reasons. Man' tadween al-hadith. There are books are written why the hadith was prohibited until the time of this Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, until the year 102. 102 Hijri, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz was an Umayyad caliph. He allowed it to be written. Before that, they didn't allow it. They said it will clash with the Quran, but this was a pretext. It wasn't the real reason. It was for political reason. So the Quran is the same. When they started doing tadween to the hadith, at the same time they started doing the tadween of the tafsir, not the Quran. Quran was written during the time of Imam Ali. The tafsir of the Quran. Because people started to die. And you need to put that in a book. In the past, they used to memorize everything. Memorizing the poetry, memorizing Quran, memorize the hadith, memorize the tafsir. But then people less and less started to be less dependent on their memories. Besides the expansion of the Islamic Ummah. At that time, early days, people were in Medina, one neighborhood. They know each other. But then when Islam starts to expand, you have to take this knowledge with you. Sharq, Gharb, to all these countries. So the oldest...
So say, can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
You know, during the war with the Jihadi, so there was that rule where they would say if each person can teach writing or can teach reading and writing. So how were they doing the teaching of that to the people that were coming in and being?
No, it's not necessarily whoever can teach the Quran. They didn't say teach how to read or write. When you want to be released, if you want to be released, teach him. Teach the non-Muslim, teach them how to memorize, how to speak. Not necessarily writing. Yeah. Teaching the language, not the Quran or the tafsir. Teaching the language. Yeah. So the first tafsir that was put systematically from the first surah, Surah Al-Hamd, okay, and then Surah Al-Baqarah and till the last chapter in the Quran was made by a man who was from Tabi'een, not Sahaba. Third generation. Who was the student of Abdullah ibn Abbas. He was the student of Abdullah ibn Abbas. And his name is Mujahid ibn Jabr. Mujahid ibn Jabr. The students of Abdullah ibn Abbas. Mujahid, we spoke about him. He was born 21 Hijri and died 104 Hijri. Some people say 101. So I don't know which one is ready. So he lived over 8 years. Almost, he lived 84 years. 84 years, okay? This man, his name is Abu al-Hajjaj al-Makhzumi al-Makki. He died in Mecca. This man, according to researchers, was the first person to write down, to do tadween of the tafsir from the beginning of the Quran till the end of it. He was the student of Ibn Abbas. And وروي عنه, he says, Mujahid says, عرضت القرآن على ابن عباس 3 مرات أقف عند كل آية أسأله فيما نزلت وكيف نزلت. I double checked the Quran with Ibn Abbas 3 times from the beginning to the end. I stop at every verse, I ask him the meaning of it and how did it come down. And therefore I did this collection 3 times. Not 1 time or twice, 3 times. Therefore, there is a saying that says, أعلمهم بالتفسير, the most knowledgeable of the tabi'een in the tafsir of Quran is this man, Mujahid. And of course, they speak highly about him. He was faqih, he was pious, he was, the Sunnis also accept him. They accept him and they respect him. And this is why today, if you look at books of tafsir, وَقَالَ Mujahid. Mujahid says this and this and this. In both traditions, in the Shi'i and the Sunni tradition, they give the reference to Mujahid. This is the opinion of Mujahid because they find him in his book, in the book that he put down. So this hadith, the tafsir of Mujahid was put in a book. The tafsir that he did from beginning to the end, the one who wrote that tafsir, his name is Abu Yasar Abdullah ibn Abi Najih al-Thaqafi al-Kufi. Long name.
So he
Dictated to this man, yes. So the tafsir belongs to this, but what they call him, scribe? The scribe was this man, Abu Yasar Abdullah ibn Abi Najih al-Thaqafi al-Kufi, who died 131. Mujahid died 84. That guy, the scribe, died 131. Now let's stop for a while with Mujahid. We spoke about him in the past, but now what makes his tafsir important? First of all, his teacher Ibn Abbas. Ibn Abbas founded which school of tafsir? Where? No. Mecca. Ibn Abbas established the Mecca school of tafsir. And yeah.
When you hear say tafsir, you really mean ta'wil.
No. Tafsir, the meaning. Ta'wil, it's with the school of Ahlul Bayt. Others did not delve into ta'wil. Ta'wil, tafsir is the translation of this verse.
So this word means this word means this.
Yeah.
This sentence.
Ta'wil belongs to the Imams of Ahlul Bayt.
So he didn't go really deep.
No. Sometimes, we will see. Sometimes he will, because he heard it from Ibn Abbas was the student of Imam Ali. So in fact, this guy, he received the tafsir from Imam Ali through Ibn Abbas. Ibn Abbas also learned the entire tafsir from A to Z from Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Some commentators on the Quran, they say this guy had two weaknesses. One of them, he was accused that he would get some of the meanings of the Quran from Ahlul Kitab. They accuse him, but he denies that. He says, my teacher, my sole teacher is Ibn Abbas. And Ibn Abbas, he would never listen to someone other than Amir al-Mu'mineen. He would not get his source, he would not go to an external source. So this is number one. Number two, he was accused that he introduces his own personal opinion in the Quran, not necessarily the one of Ibn Abbas. Again, he answers this. There was a time that the environment that prevailed and dominated at that time was that they accept Zahir al-Quran, only the surface meaning. And sometimes the surface meaning is misleading. And we have examples of that. What are the examples? Many examples. Yadullah fawqa aydihim. God's hand is above their hand. They would accept the surface meaning. That, yeah, God had a hand. What's wrong with that? God, He has a hand. And His hand is above people's hand. But this is not His one meant. This is a metaphor. This is ta'wil here. Or wajh, Allah has a face. At that time, that was the dominant culture, is to accept the zahir of the Quran. They don't dig deep. Okay? So Mujahid did not accept this. Mujahid said, Quran is for tadabbur, for reflection. Don't take the literal meaning. There is a metaphoric meaning here, deeper meaning, a satiric meaning here. You know, today, the greatest mufassir in the Sunni tradition, who's the greatest mufassir? Help me with the answer.
Bukhari, Muslim.
No, Bukhari, don't get mixed. Hadith,
Yeah.
tafsir. Who's the greatest? The Imam of the Mufassirin. Fakhr al-Razi. Razi, the greatest tafsir. Fakhr al-Razi, when he comes to this verse, وجوه يومئذ ناظرة إلى وجه ربها ناظرة, Surah Al-Qiyamah. وجوه, faces are on a such day, ناظرة, looking up, إلى ربها ناظرة, to their Lord they are looking. He says, yes, they are going to see God physically. So he gives the surface tafsir, the literal meaning. Whereas this verse is a metaphor. Even Tabari is Imam, they call him Imam al-Mufassirin. Tabari is Imam al-Mufassirin. Muhammad ibn Jarir, Abu Ja'far, Muhammad ibn Jarir al-Tabari. Today the greatest tafsir in the Sunni tradition, tafsir al-Tabari. Tabari, he has two things. He did two things. He did tarikh and he did tafsir.
And say, who's the first one?
Fakhr al-Razi. Fakhr al-Razi. They call him Imam al-Razi. Imam al-Razi, al-Razi, al-Razi.
was Persian, right?
Yes, yeah. He lived from 544 until 606 Hijri. But Tabari was before him. Tabari is 300 years before. This is Imam al-Razi. They consider his tafsir today is number one, top of the list.
Tabari?
No, Razi. We have before him at-Tabari. Tabari, he lived from, when was he? Let me see. Tabari, 224, see? Long time before. 224 till 310. See, this is his time. Whereas Razi was after him.
So he was around the time of Imam Ali al-Hadi maybe? Or?
Yes, at that time. Tabari, where was he born? Both are Iranians, by the way. Both are Iranians. Tabari in Tabaristan.
Gilan.
Tabaristan, the ancient name of Gilan, in the city of Amul. Amul, which is today's Amul. It used to be called Tabaristan. But where he's buried, do you know? Baghdad.
Tabari.
Yeah?
Tabari is in Baghdad.
He's Iranian by birth, Iraqi by death. But he lived, of course, in Egypt, he lived in Sham, he lived in Basra, he lived in Kufa, he lived in so many cities, Tabari. And he did two great works. One of them is tafsir al-Quran. His tafsir is Jami' al-Bayan. Jami' al-Bayan fi ta'wil al-Quran. Though he said ta'wil, but unfortunately he didn't do ta'wil. He didn't do a good job. Because when he comes to this verse, وَجُوهٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ نَاظِرَةٌ, which is 75, Surah Al-Qiyamah, 75, 23, Surah Al-Qiyamah. He repeats the same thing. He says, yes, people are waiting to see the face of their Lord on the Day of Judgment.
So both of them say that.
Both of them. In fact, it started with this guy. That one copied this guy. And he has history also. Tarikh al-Tabari is very famous today. Maybe the book number 1 in the Islamic library, a book of history, is Tarikh al-Umam wal-Muluk. It's well known. I have it at home. Tarikh al-Umam, Tarikh al-Umam wal-Muluk. Again, this is Tabari. Muhammad ibn Jarir. His nickname is Abu Ja'far Muhammad ibn al-Imam, Imam al-Mufassirin. He's Imam, he's the top of the line. So both they, when it comes to looking at God, they say, yeah, it's literal. Here you can't see God, but there everything is possible. God will be embodiment. He will be embodied in a shape, in a physical shape. What's wrong with that? People want to see, God. He will allow people to see some shape of Him. It's not possible. It's not impossible for God. We say it's impossible. Neither in this life nor in the akhirah. Why? For a simple philosophical reason. God has no physical structure. No physical structure.
It's a contradiction.
Yeah.
To say that.
Once you put Him in physical structure, then you are limiting Him. But what they say, we know He has no physical structure, but He wants to manifest Himself. So people see something, So what's wrong with that if He wants to manifest Himself? I say, I don't know. Really, I don't know. It's really confusing.
It's actually ironic. These guys are saying Mujahid got his learnings from the Ahl Kitab. Meanwhile, this sounds more getting
Absolutely. So Mujahid came and he said, no. وجوه يومئذ ناظرة. The first ناظرة, وجوه يومئذ. On a such day, faces are ناظرة. It means waiting. Because there is evidence that the Quran uses ناظرة as waiting. Bilqis, when Sulaiman sent her a message of invitation, she said, فَنَظِرَةٌ بِمَا يَرْجِعِ الْمُرْسَلُونَ. Let's wait from ناظر. I am ناظر, waiting. The second ناظرة, إلى ربها ناظرة. إلى ربها does not mean to His physical face. It means to His mercy and His blessing and His grace. Not His physical. They are waiting for His mercy to arrive so I can be saved. This is the translation. This is what Mujahid said. And Mujahid took this from Ibn Abbas, and Ibn Abbas from Imam Ali, and Imam Ali from the Prophet. But still, they contradict him. They say Mujahid here is wrong. This is a literal meaning. Why? Because this was the Salafi tradition at that time. Salafi tradition was a literal tradition, even until today. Literal tradition. They believed in the literal meaning of the Quran. Why? When they shifted away, because the only one who can give you the inner meaning, the esoteric meaning, are Ahlul Bayt. But when you shift away from them, you don't subscribe to their school, there is no one to tell you the inner meaning. You pulled yourself out of this. So you have to say the literal meaning. You have no way but to give the literal meaning. So Mujahid, he gave the right answer. Something funny I told you about Tabari. Tabari, when he was in Baghdad and he died, during the last days of his life, he was accused of being Shia. Any sympathy, any level of sympathy with Ahlul Bayt at that time, any level of sympathy, would be considered a sign of Shi'ism. Even if you agree in one fiqhi opinion, in one tafsir opinion, with the Imami tradition, immediately you are. Or not necessarily you agree with Ahl. If you don't disagree with them, then you are one of them. Immediately they bring this stamp, khalas, they stamp you with the stamp of Shi'ism. He's Shi'i, he's Rafidi. And this happened to At-Tabari when he was in Baghdad, and he was under house arrest. At that time, the Hanbalis, during this time, into the 4th century, the Hanbalis dominated Baghdad, the school of Ahmad ibn Hanbal, which is the Salafi school. So he died under house arrest. He couldn't leave his house because there was such a time where extremism and sectarianism was on the rise in Baghdad in particular. So even someone like Tabari was accused of being Shia. This is why there is a discrepancy between his history and his tafsir. Did I tell you this before? I told you. When he does the tafsir of Surah Al-Shu'ara, وَأَنذِرْ عَشِيرَتَكَ الْأَقْرَبِينَ. Very famous story. Surah Al-Shu'ara, Allah says to the Prophet, begin preaching to your next in kin first. So the Prophet gathered the 40 people of Bani Hashim. Story, famous story in Mecca. So in his tafsir, when he comes to Surah Al-Shu'ara, in the tafsir, in the tarikh, he says, the Prophet said, who is going to help me? Provided that if he helps me today, he will be akhi wa wasiyi wa khalifati min ba'di. He's going to be my brother, my successor, and my janishin, and my khalifa after me. In this book, you know what he says? In tafsir,
He drops the last one.
he drops the last two ones. He says the Prophet said he will be akhi wa kada wa kada wa kada. Rather than wasiyi wa khalifati wa warithi, he says wa kada and etc. 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 In the same author, can you imagine? Same author, Tabari. In this book, he speaks the truth. He gives the full story, full account of what happened. That the Prophet said, if today any one of you help me, this guy who's going to help me is going to be my brother, my successor, my aide, my inheritor, the caliph after me. And Imam Ali stood for 3 times. He was only 12 years old or 13. But when he comes to tafsir, subhanallah, something amazing. He says the Prophet, and then the Prophet, he said, whoever is supportive of me, he will be akhi wa kada wa kada wa kada. That tells you a lot, my friends, of the politics of the time.
So say the Tariq came before the tafsir then?
Yeah. Then when he was seized at home and he was accused of being Shia, he had to be careful in what he says, because when he says this hadith, then it means you are Shia. You are a Shia. You are supporting the theory of the Shia. So this is one of the things that Mujahid did. And
So he denies both criticisms.
yeah, he denies. He says, I'm not doing my opinion. I would never bring my opinion. They accused him of bringing his own opinion to undermine him, to undermine his credibility, to say he's worthless. But in fact, he took that from Ibn Abbas. And he said, we have to use the reason. We cannot be literalist in the Quran. The Quran itself says some of them are literal, they have literal meaning, some of them metaphor. Some of them, وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلُهُ. آيات محكمات, the literal. وَأُخَرُ مُتَشَابِهات, metaphor. So you have to put the pieces of the puzzle together to know the meaning. You cannot know the meaning with one verse, with knowing the literal meaning. You have to put, this is a puzzle, mutashabihat, puzzle. So you have to put the pieces together, you have to go deeper, you will get the real meaning. And this is one of the verses in the Quran, which is until today, it's a subject of division and difference between the schools. Until today, the Hanafi tradition, they say these are literal. Yes, God, what's wrong with him showing his face, having hand, or having a real seat, physical seat, kursi? He has. In fact, the beauty of the Quran when you read the esoteric meaning. And believe me, in every page in the Quran there is esoteric meaning, ta'wil. Every page you take, there is a verse that you have to, not, I think in every verse. أنزل من السماء ماء فسالت أودية بقدرها. This is the greatness of the Quran, that he speaks normal Arabic, but the meaning is much deeper. The meaning, he's trying to say something else. The language is simple, but the meaning is not simple. أنزل من السماء. He dropped water from the sky. Rain. Of course, rain. So what's about it? I know it's raining. What are you trying to tell me? You have to tell me something important. God does not, just say merely I bring rain. I bring down rain. He wants to say something. أنزل من السماء ماء فسالت أودية بقدرها. Wadi is where the river, where the rain is going to go down, stream. Allah says these streams, some of them are small, some of them are medium, some of them are big. Each one according biqadariha, to its own capacity. So what is this here, the metaphor? Ilm. This is ilm. Allah sends down the knowledge, the ma'rifah. Each person gets according to his capacity, gigabyte. Some people have half gigabyte, some people have 60 gigabytes. This is a metaphor. Metaphor in reference to ilm, to knowledge, not just to rain. Quran is not a storytelling. So I know rain comes down and it goes through. So what? There is something behind that. God is trying to tell me something. But those literalists, they don't go beyond. Khalas. They take it as very literal. This is why their tafsir doesn't have any enjoyment. When you listen to their tafsir, you enjoy the Quran when you get the pearls down there. You dive down there and you get the pearls. So, this is regarding the... there is, Mujahid says, he says, if you are telling me that God they look at God, meaning they are looking at him physically, then what do you say about the verse that says, وَلَا يَنظُرُ إِلَيْهِمْ يَوْمَ وَلَا يَنظُرُ اللَّهُ إِلَيْهِمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ وَلَا يَنظُرُ إِلَيْهِمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. This is Al-Imran 377. 377. God would not look at them on the day of judgment. What does that mean? If you take it literal, it means I'm not looking at you. I turn my face here. This is literal. But what is the message? لا ينظر إليه. Huh? Exactly. They are excluded from mercy. Not that he doesn't look at them. He doesn't gaze at them. Meaning that they are excluded from the mercy. This is the real meaning of the Quran. And whoever walked behind Ahlul Bayt was a winner. Whoever shifted away was a loser till the day of judgment. وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.